I started a podcast for less than $100, and within 3 months, I already secured big name, world-class guests such as SpaceX co-founder Jim Cantrell, and gained over 3 million views across social media, making myself the fastest growing under 21 podcaster in Europe. After watching this, you'll be convinced to start your own podcast, especially if you're broke. I'll give you 3 reasons why starting your podcast broke is an advantage. First, we'll cover how to start your podcast for $100 or less like I did. Second, we'll cover why being broke is actually an advantage when you're first starting out as a podcaster. And third, we'll cover why starting a podcast when you're broke will actually mean you continue your podcast when you get rich from it. So what do you actually need and how do you get it for less than $100 when you're starting your podcast? Well, first, let's go through some equipment I got and I use for less than $100 when I first started my show. First, you'll definitely need a laptop. So if you don't have a laptop, definitely buy one, but I'm just going to assume most of you have a laptop. This is going to be the hub where you can connect with guests remotely, edit your podcast for free using software, research using free AI, which I'll talk about later, and basically do everything you need to do all from one place. So that's the first thing you'll definitely need. If you don't have any of the other equipment I'm going to tell you in a second, that's fine. And if you can't afford any of the equipment, that's fine. Just literally use your laptop because you can do everything on it, even at a half decent level. So what else do you need? What else would I invest in next? The second thing I would invest in would be the software to use on your laptop. So these two are paid, but they're less than $100, especially monthly. If you want to get guests on your podcast, which I'd assume you'd want to, and let me tell you a reason why getting guests on your podcast when you're starting out is actually a super competitive advantage. It's because the guests that you get on your show are often going to be more credible than you are. They're going to be have higher expertise than you. Therefore, people will come to listen to the guest and then over time come to listen to you as well. The more guests you get on the show and the better the conversations are. Also, the better guests you can get on your show, the more their audience will come to your platform. They'll bring their audience with them. I listened to Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom podcast, which has blown up in the last 2 years, one of my favorite shows. He said this exact words. He says, the guests bring their audience with them. Use that as leverage, basically, because they'll bring their audience and then some of that audience will stick with you and follow you as well because they'll enjoy the conversation and they'll enjoy yourself, your insights and the questions they ask. If you just do a podcast where it's you talking to the camera, it's going to take a much longer time to grow your show unless you're a podcast expert, or not a podcast expert, but an expert like Andrew Huberman, who had already had 3 or 4 decades worth of specific neuroscience experience behind him, which he could explain to the camera. But even Andrew Huberman gets guests on his show, and that brings way more people to his platform because humans love to eavesdrop on conversations and they love to learn from conversations and stories. And if you get guests on your show, that's going to be the best way to leverage that. If it was just you talking to the camera, it's not going to be a conversation and it's going to be less engagement and it'll take a longer time for your show to grow. You'll just be shooting yourself in the foot. So how do we get guests with a budget of less than $100 when we're broke? First, I would get Riverside.fm. Riverside FM is basically think of it like Zoom, but it's specifically for recording remote podcasts. This means it records the highest quality audio and video and uploads it all to a cloud. So you don't have to worry about the website crashing, which has happened many times in my podcast career so far. It saves everything as you record, as well as having an editing suite, which you can use. And it gives you things like Magic Audio and AI Assistant, which can help you generate show notes, improve your audio. It basically can do everything for you for $20 a month. I'm not sponsored by Riverside FM yet. Hopefully it will be in the near future, but it's the one I use. And it's allowed me to get massive guests like SpaceX co-founder Jim Cantrell, over 10 plus best-selling authors. I've used it to record all my episodes, which has been over 40 episodes in the last 3 months with some of the most high-performing people in the world. all from my laptop using Riverside FM. So I would definitely get that. But although Riverside FM has its own editing software, I don't think it's that good compared to Descript. Descript is another software specifically for post-production. So once you've recorded your podcast, then what you do after is post-production. That's the editing phase before you upload it onto the internet and the world. Descript FM I recommend as well as Riverside because Descript is specifically made for the editing process and it uses a much better AI software to do so. What it does is you upload the video into it and it takes a transcript and you can just highlight a sentence that you don't want in there, press delete and it deletes it from the video. So you don't have to do it manually. It just does it itself with one click of a button, a highlight and a delete. That's all awesome. But what else does it do that makes it worth buying and investing in as well, especially when you're broke? Studio sound. Studio sound on Descript turns audio that's echoey in your bedroom, like AirPod audio or laptop audio if you don't have a microphone when you're starting out. It turns that into professionally sounding, clean, crisp, non-echoey sound. It makes it sound like you're in a studio. And why is that important? Because podcasting is still an audio-based media. Although we're getting fancy with the lighting and the videos, and most of your growth will come on YouTube, so I do recommend recording. We'll get to that in a minute. Podcasting is still mainly audio. People come to listen. Think about when you listen to podcasts or you watch podcasts. What percentage of the time are you listening versus watching? From my own experience, even with Modern Wisdom and Diary of a CEO with their amazing visuals, 99% of the time I'm listening. I'm listening to the podcast whilst I'm on a walk, whilst I'm working out, whilst I'm doing whatever, doing the dishes or whatever. Therefore, audio is the most important thing. If you're starting out and you can't afford a 300 microphone like this Shure SM7B, what's the next best option? Well, it's to use software that with one click of a button can turn your crappy audio into amazing audio. And that's exactly what Descript does. But what else does it do? Because you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's cool, Jacob, but I'm broke. Why else would I buy this? I can't just buy Descript for a fancy audio feature. Let me tell you what it does. It turns your podcast, let's say it's an hour-long episode, it turns that into as many clips as you want. It uses AI to go through your transcript, find the most engaging parts of your show, and turns it into 10 to a minute and a half long clips to put onto social media, to put onto TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, X, wherever you want it to go. Why does this matter? Because short form content is your advertising for your full episodes. You can't grow on Apple and Spotify right now. You can only grow posting the full episodes on YouTube because Apple and Spotify don't have a homepage. They don't have a good algorithm. They don't push it to a lot of people other than on YouTube where the full episodes can get pushed out to a lot of people. But because the episodes are so long and you're just starting out, not a lot of people are going to go on the full episodes. But short form content, we all know this, gets pushed to a lot of people. It gets a lot of views. It's almost guaranteed to get a couple hundred or even 1,000 views per clip, even if it's not that good. That means the more short form content you can post and the faster you can do that, the more people you're going to get from there to your main podcast. Think of it as a sample. When you go into a shop, if people are trying to sell brownies, they won't just point at the full box and say, buy these, buy these. They'll let you try a small sample first. And if you like it, you buy the full box. If someone sees a small sample, a small snippet, a clip of your podcast, they might potentially check out the full episode because of that. That's what short form content does, and it's for free. You don't have to pay to post on these social media platforms. And if you want to grow your own show, then this is the best way to do it. How do we do that quickly though? How do you do that if you have no experience in short form content creation? What you do is you use Descript, ask it to create 10 clips that are the most engaging, the most interesting, the most controversial, because that might get a lot of views if it's controversial or if it's a hot take from the guest or yourself. Press that. A minute or two later, you have 10 clips that you can just upload and schedule. And that means you have not just a full episode to post, hopefully at least once a week, but also daily content as well. It's an absolute no-brainer. So that's one of the many other features Descript does. It helps you shorten word gaps, remove filler words like like annoying stuff like that. It can generate show notes for you, chapters for you. It can do almost everything you need to create a pro podcast from your bedroom. And it's less than $20 a month. So you have at least a couple months of using this software if you have $100 and you're not making any money whatsoever. And it's an absolute no-brainer. I recommend doing that, investing in those two software rather than investing in a camera, fancy LED lights, couple £100 microphone, audio interface to allow the microphone to go into your laptop. You don't need any of that. You just need this two software on your laptop to get guests on, record the podcast, upload it and repurpose it and get a large audience. As a quick example of how powerful the short form clips are from Riverside, Descript, are. I made one from one of my first episodes with a guest, alcohol historian. I put it on social media and it was one that Descript made for me. And guess what? It got over 1 million views on Instagram and on TikTok from a clip that AI made. How awesome is that? And that allowed me to get 10% more of like a 10% increase in my full episode audience, let alone all the followers I got on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of them converted to Spotify, Apple, and YouTube from that one 30-second video. Like, how cool is that? It's absolutely incredible. So if you do that, you might be thinking, okay, how do I record video? Well, use your phone. You have a phone right now. You're probably watching this on your phone. Your phone will record in HD, which is more than good enough. It might even record in 4K. All you need to do is just pop it up on a cheap iPhone or phone tripod on Amazon and then just record. If you really want to do that, you could even use your laptop webcam. Remember, podcast is audio only. If we're starting off when we're broke, we just need to get episodes out there and practice and over time invest in kit. And the best way to start is to invest, or no, not to invest, to use your phone or your laptop to do that. It's basically for free because your mum probably pays for it or you're already paying for it yourself. You don't need to get a new fancy camera. Just do with what you have. Be resourceful. Like I was saying, this entire video so far. How do you do that? Use your iPhone or use your laptop webcam. Even the video that got me millions of social media views, my camera battery ran out, so I was recording on my laptop webcam and it wasn't even full HD. It was 720p. And the video that was 720p and looked terrible compared to my normal camera footage blew up on social media and got millions of views. You do not need a £1,000 camera to start your own podcast, especially when you're broke. But if you have a bit more than $100 or you have some spare cash or you want to invest in a microphone, I would recommend getting the Rode NT USB or the Rode USB Mini. It's a mini microphone. They're lightweight, they're portable. They can plug directly into your laptop. So when you're recording on Riverside remotely, just whack it in, choose that as your microphone and you're laughing. And then if you apply Riverside's Magic Audio and Descript Studio Sound, it sounds professional. In fact, I've got the Rode microphone just behind me here, which I've used for so many episodes. I often use it when I don't have this one available. And it sounds super good, super effective. And even in an echoey room with the Magic Audio and Descript Studio Sound, it makes it sound super clean. So you do not have any excuse whatsoever. This is how you start for less than $100. This is the equipment you use. All I'd recommend doing if you're super broke and you want to start straight away, which you need to do, is use your laptop, download Riverside, download Descript, and then get recording. In terms of lighting, if you can afford a £23 or dollar ring light, just get one off Amazon. It's the one I'm using here. I've also got one as a side light here. They're both about $10 to $20 each. And then I've got the small LED panel lights and an orange one down there. They were about £15 as well. So if you want to spend, less than £50 on lighting and you can afford that, then I'd recommend doing it. It just makes it look so much more cinematic. But remember, audio is a priority. getting guests on remotely is the priority. So that's if you have a bit more cash to spend or if you're slightly more advanced. Okay, so how does starting with nothing and being broke, how is that more advantageous than starting when you're rich or successful already? When you have nothing to lose, that makes you dangerous. If you have nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose, as Bob Dylan said. Why does that make you dangerous? It's because there's no sunk cost bias. Humans have such a bias towards losing things, losing money, losing relationships, losing house, losing anything. If you gain £100, that's all cool. But if you lose £100, you feel 2 times worse. You have 2 times more of an emotional response to losing the same amount of money than gaining it. So if you're working a white collar job, you're a lawyer or you're a banker and you decide to start a podcast in your spare time, you won't have a lot of time because you're working full time anyway. You probably have a family and kids, so you won't have a lot of time to commit to your podcast. You also won't have you will have the pressure. You have financial pressure. You can't just quit your job if you're working full time and you have a family. Why is that the case? Because you're spending money on a house, on a car, on holidays, on whatever, which means you can't actually fully make the jump. And when you get back from home after a 12-hour shift or a 10-hour shift at the law firm, do you really want to do a podcast? They're actually prisoners. These people who have full-time jobs that want to become creators or podcasters, they're not going to succeed compared to you if you're starting out with nothing or if you're starting out with a part-time job or no money. Time is the most valuable asset. The more time you have to commit to your podcast, the better the podcast is going to get. The more you can obsess over it, the more you can research, the more episodes you can record, the more practice you can do. So by having nothing, by being broke, it's actually advantageous because although you're broke, you're resourceful. AI software, recording software, super cheap nowadays, like I just said previously. And also you have time to commit to it. How cool is that? Who's more dangerous? Who's going to get more success as a podcaster? Let's use an analogy. The guy who owns a law firm, who's a lawyer, and his team tell him to start a podcast because it might get them new clients, or the guy who's unemployed or working part-time, who's consumed thousands of hours of podcasting, knows how social media works, and has an absolute passion and curiosity for the world and wants to understand himself and the world around him better. Obviously, the guy who's unemployed or working part-time. The guy in the law firm doesn't have any time. He's working full-time anyway. He's managing people. He doesn't have a passion because he's just trying to do it to get new clients. He probably listened to 3 podcasts in his life. Yeah, he might have more equipment. He might be able to rent out a studio. He might be able to get slightly better guests in person, potentially. But as soon as something goes wrong at work, as soon as he needs to spend more time in the office, as soon as his family start demanding for his time, as soon as he starts missing his kids in the evenings, he's not going to be able to do the podcast. He's going to stop because he's not passionate about it. He was just starting it because it's a new trendy thing and it might get him some new clients. Whereas the guy who's unemployed, the guy who has a part-time job, the guy who doesn't have a lot of money, but he has time, he has passion, he's curious, he wants to understand himself. And because he has no money, he will use that as fuel. He'll use that as shit. I need to do something with my life. I need to make money. Let me just keep doing this podcast thing because I love it anyway. It feels like a hobby, which means I'm going to continue to do it. And maybe in a few years, in a few months, I might be able to make money from it. That's way more dangerous because you have more time and you have the passion, but you also have the fear behind you of, I don't want to go in debt. I'm going to have bills to pay. I want to do something with my life and I want to do a career that will make me successful. If you're already in a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job, you don't have time. By the time you finished work, your brain is dead. You just want to have dinner. You want to spend time with your family. You don't want to do podcasting. You don't even care about podcasting. It was just a cool idea in the moment. The guy who's unemployed will win. The guy who's broke will win. The guy who's working a part-time job will win because this is his only option and he has a lot of time to spend on that option and he genuinely loves what he does. Do work that feels like play to you but looks like work for others. The people that do podcasting and it feels like play to them are going to last longer than the ones who are doing it for status or are doing it because it might get them some new clients on their business, or they're doing it as a side thing because it still feels like work to them. They're not genuinely passionate about it. So if you're broke or if you're unemployed, but you love podcasting, that's an advantage, and you want to start a podcast, that's actually advantageous. You actually have the best conditions to start because the passion will keep you going and you have more time to spend on it. So the next advantage of doing it and starting your own podcast when you're broke is consistency. If you do it when you're broke, you'll continue it when you're rich. So clearly, if you start a podcast when you're broke, you weren't doing it just for the money, right? You're doing it for the passion. And if you have passion and persistence and you do something when you're broke, that means you genuinely enjoy it. Therefore, when you start getting money from it eventually, you're going to enjoy it even more and you're going to continue to do it even more. So therefore, starting when you're broke is an advantage. And if you compare that to the guy who's already rich, he's already successful, and he was just doing this for a laugh or for a side hustle because he was going to get more clients, he's going to be inconsistent because demands from work are going to mean he won't be able to focus on the podcast. And if he doesn't get anything from it straight away, he doesn't get any new clients or views, he will just stop doing it because, he makes money in his law firm. Whereas you, this is the only way that you're going to be able to make money. This is the only way that you're going to be able to increase your status. This is the only way for you to make a career out of something that you genuinely love. Therefore, you're going to do it for a longer period of time. And then once you start making money from it, you're going to continue to do it. If you were doing it for the quick bucks, you would give up straight away. But if you continue to do it within the back of your mind thinking, I could get rich from this eventually, but I love it anyway, so I'm going to continue to do it even if I don't make money from it anytime soon, that's dangerous. That's powerful because once you do start making money from it, you're going to love it even more. And it's not even going to feel like work to you. And it will mean you stay in the game long enough to then make money from it, because it's going to take a long time for you to make money from podcasting. It might take years. It could take months if you're lucky, or if you work really hard, but it can take years. But the only way to fail is to stop. Success and failure are on the same road. The difference is if you stop, you fail. If you keep going, you'll eventually succeed. It's the same with podcasting. If you keep going, you'll eventually be able to make a career out of it. If you stop, you don't. That's literally it. And if you have passion for it and you start it when you're broke, you're going to have a way higher chance of continuing to do it because you're not just doing it for the money, you're doing it for the genuine fulfillment and enjoyment you get from it. So these are the reasons why starting a podcast when you're broke is an advantage. And if you want to know the exact blueprint I used to start my podcast from scratch and make it the successful, growing show it is, that's made me become the fastest growing under 21 podcaster in Europe. You want to find ways to secure big name guests, ask the right questions, use AI and free tools to actually speed up the process and improve your show. And you want to do it the exact way I do it whilst avoiding the mistakes I made, as well as get personalized feedback from me on the live weekly calls, and join a community of ambitious podcasters who want to grow their show, who can help and support you and befriend you along the process, then top link in the description for my promo podcast blueprint. I'll hopefully see you there. By the way, if you're watching this right now, you're probably early, which means the first 25 people that sign up to this will get it half price. As soon as it goes past 25, I'm going to increase it. It's an absolute bargain right now. I've got thousands of dollars worth of advice, of templates, of resources for you to help you grow your show from scratch. And right now I'm charging it at $47 a month, which will double very soon. So get there now. Check out in the top link description. I'll hopefully see you there. Goodbye.